Overview Committee. I'm Councillor Jameson, I'm the Chairman of the committee. Members and officers have their names in front of them for ease of reference. In order to assist in the process this evening, I must ask everybody to ensure that mobile phones are either switched off or on silent mode. We will be grateful if you would remain quiet while the meeting is in progress. I'd like to remind everyone present that this meeting will be filmed by the Council and broadcast live on the internet and will be capable of repeated viewing. If you are seated in the chamber, it is possible that the cameras will capture your image. By your presence, you are deemed to consent to be filmed and to the use of those images and sound recordings for webcasting and/or training purposes. As the chairman of the meeting, I can at my discretion terminate or suspend filming, if in my opinion, continuing to do so would prejudice the proceedings of the meeting, or if I consider that continued filming might infringe the rights of any individual or breach any statutory provision. Finally, there are no planned fire drills for this evening. If the fire alarm sounds, please evacuate the building immediately via the emergency exits. Thank you. Agenda item 1, apologies.
Thank you, Chairman. Apologies from Councillor Hilliard and Councillor Watts, and also from the leader, Councillor Flagg, and Deputy Leader, Mrs Jameson.
Thank you. Declarations of interest. Item 3, Bournemouth Christchurch. Well, before we start, I think it's worthy of note that this is the first meeting of this extraordinary committee to scrutinise the joint committee of Bournemouth Pool and Christchurch, and it's unfortunate that both the representatives on that joint committee are not available this evening, but I don't believe it should prevent us from carrying out our function. And if there are any points that need to be raised prior to them going to the next meeting, I'm sure we can ensure that those comments are passed. As we're a small group this evening, are you happy that we continue in a fairly informal manner? Thank you. It does make life a little bit easier. So agenda item 3, Bournemouth Christchurch and Pool Joint Committee, dated the 30th of October. Can I make an assumption that members have had the opportunity to read the minutes from that joint meeting? And just allow a few moments just to let people refresh themselves on the contents. Okay, I think we've given that sufficient time. I think it might be useful to go through headline by headline and see if we have any comments or questions as we go through, and see what we can, if there are any answers that can be gleaned.
If I may, Chairman.
Please.
Thank you, Chairman.
Please.
Microphone.
Thank you, Chairman. As members will know, I represent the County Council on the Joint Committee, so I will be happy to elaborate on any concerns that members might have. There are a number of points that I would pick up on which may be relevant to us. The first, of course, is that
David, before you do that, can you let me just go through the process that I want to go through?
Yes,
so
certainly.
pick up the headlines, and then we can come back to your points. Okay, I'm going to go through the headlines that we've got. If you've got any comments that you wish to make, and David will come in as we hit those headlines. Is that all right? So, local government reorganisation submission update. Item 8, local government reorganisation programme governance structure. Local government reorganisation programme overview, which is item 9. You can dive in at any point. Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I was just concerned why, I suppose it's the wrong forum to ask, but of course they're in page 8, there was a reference about the joint committee being politically balanced. Unfortunately, whoever it was who brought that forward didn't actually get a seconder for his proposal. I was just surprised that, they didn't feel that it was suitable to have a politically balanced body.
Yes, Chairman, I'll just confirm that, and I would like to support Councillor Neil. This body is supposed to be speaking on behalf, not just of the councils, but I suppose of the people, particularly in Bournemouth and Poole, who haven't been allowed the freedom to express their own views. And it is important, I would have thought it was important, to have opposition members there. And there is, I will say this for Poole Council, they have put the leader of the opposition on that body, but they are obviously taking steps to sideline him, and nothing that he says is, it is unfortunate. It's not a laughing matter because he does have a mandate, and it should be, I think, politically balanced. There is an opposition in Poole, and a fairly strong opposition, and that opposition seems to have a lot more idea of this is a personal view of what's going on than the leadership. So if ever we were to ask an opinion, or to give an opinion in writing to anybody, I think it might be appropriate for us to note in our conclusions that we regret that that committee is not politically balanced. Okay. I'm not sure how it gets around the Local Government Act's provisions that they should be balanced, but I'm sure it must do.
Thank you. So I'm going to go on Paragraph 9, Local Government Reorganisation Programme Overview. Comments? I think I would ask a question on at the decision made, paragraph 5, and seek any comments from the County Council member who was there. That it says that supporting the successful delivery of the programme will inevitably involve one-off costs, but these will be developed and be subject of a report at the next meeting of the committee. Would those one-off costs, whatever they are, be divided pro rata?
Chairman, unless I am mistaken, the specific details of what these one-off costs would be, and it should be recorded in the minutes, were not actually spelt out in detail. But and I mean, to be fair, and I don't like being fair, but you have to be, some of these costs, I suppose, are not yet determined. They remain unknown unknowns. And a point that was made when talking about the services at the next meeting was that there will be challenges and difficulties. And what concerns me is that I'm not sure at the moment that the structure is robust enough to cope with certain changes of government policy.
I think also in fairness, it does say that there will be a report at the next meeting, so it's probably later on in the agenda that we'll get to that matter if it had in fact been done. Item 10 on the same page is council tax harmonisation principles, and I think it's worth reminding members of this committee that this council has a policy that the council tax should be harmonised on day one. And the reason for that is that it is not a merging of, I'm not quite sure of the correct expression, but it's not a development of a council, it is the formulation of a new council. Therefore, as a new council, it is a new body. And as a new body, it should know what its costs will be. And as it knows what its costs will be, in the correct manner, in my view, that those costs should be allocated on day one. And that is the view that has been expressed by this council on a number of occasions. I don't know if, David, you've got any further comments on the same matter?
Yes, Chairman. Unfortunately, well, members will of course be aware that it was a condition of this council joining the body, and there were those of us who felt that that was an unwise step because it would be used to give the appearance that we were actually consenting to the takeover. And it was a specific condition that that council tax was to be harmonised from day one. Now, by accepting our, I won't say application, but accepting our agreement, one could indicate that Bournemouth and Poole would have agreed to our conditions, but obviously they haven't. We are now working apparently towards a situation where Mr. Beasley, Councillor Beasley, I beg his pardon, claims that it will be possible to harmonise, I think he said after 7 years, and he would work towards 5. Now that is still in the committee, and I know that our representative on that group has fought very hard for a day zero harmonisation, which is this council's policy. And I'm sure that our officers in their working groups will also have upheld this council's policy of a 0 day harmonisation. However, it doesn't look like we're going to get it. There are, as members will also aware, after this, which at the time was criticised by councillors of the Borough of Poole on the grounds that it was an extremely optimistic forecast and the financial situation, the parameters had changed very drastically. We now know that Duckleg is thinking of 5 years an absolute maximum and possibly more like 1 or 2. So how this relates to that, we wait to see. When we move on to the next item, the minutes of the next meeting, of the November meeting, I'd like to come in again on that point. But that was a position in October that they agreed that they would go away and look at, in a closed meeting, they would look at this position. Mr. Beasley's friend, Mr. Green, I believe, no, that's the next meeting, beg pardon, I'm meeting ahead of myself, but that was the agreement that there would be a task and finish group on which would be represented by a deputy leader that would look at the principles of council tax harmonisation, but it would not necessarily be on a day one basis.
Okay.
So again, if we were making comments, I think we would be justified in saying we were concerned that there doesn't seem to be any progress towards that particular one of our conditions.
Okay, thank you. I think we'll...
Yeah, I don't think we get very far because of our lack of representation on that part of the task and finish group. And we need to put something into the paperwork, yeah.
When it comes to, as we're looking at 10, and I think it's the second main paragraph down.
Are we on page 8?
On page 8. Well, it's the first paragraph on page 8.
Sorry. It depends which page number you're taking. The one at the top of the page?
Oh, sorry.
Or the one at the bottom of the page?
7 on the top.
It's page 8 at the top and page 12 at the bottom.
So the top paragraph on that page. Yeah. Sorry.
I too was concerned, Mr. Chairman, at the fact that we were being told that 10 years, and yet we know now that this is not acceptable. But it does refer in this to the creation of a town council in Christchurch, the potential precept and the level of income generated. Now, looking at events that have taken place, which are not in these minutes, but that the chairman of the task and finish group dealing with harmonisation has, in my opinion, jumped the gun because the meeting is on Friday. And I would have thought, Mr. Chairman, that it was his job to report to the Friday's meeting what their conclusions were, and not to, in fact, announce this at the time when we are having a poll, which seems to me an attempt to influence our poll. Because you say, oh yes, you must report this to the full committee when we meet, and here they are telling us before the full committee meets on Friday. And I would think that this is a cause for concern to us in Christchurch.
Are you saying because it is a function of the committee that should happen, and that committee doesn't meet until Friday?
That committee does not meet till Friday.
Yeah, very clear.
And it happens to coincide, this announcement, with a referendum that we are having in Christchurch, and which I'm quite sure the our chief executive would regard as trying to influence the poll if this were done by anybody else.
Thank you. I'm not going to comment on your concerns, but Yeah.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, I will
Fred.
comment. I will say that I think it is a deliberate act to announce it while we've got a poll on. The fact that they're talking about even having a freeze in the council tax.
You're referring to the ANA, the alternative and notional amount. Yeah. Okay. David.
Thank you, Chairman. Needless to say, I support the comments that have been made. In previous elections, and I choose my words with extreme caution, it has been said that one party was seeking to bribe the electorate with its own money. I would be very, very disappointed if this new authority were to begin in the same vein.
I'm going to move on now to item 11, which is communication approach. Do members have comments on this? Denise?
Chairman, in the third paragraph down of communication approach, I noticed that it says a member, 4 lines down, Dorset County Council, highlighted the welfare of staff, the role of Dorset County Council and the need to include staff in the diagram at 7. Well, we have not got the diagrams, so it would have been helpful if we were given the information that the rest were.
If I could come in there, the link to all the relevant paperwork is at the top of the agenda.
I thank you for the comment, but we don't necessarily sorry, Fred. We don't all have the electronic link, and for completeness, when all the electronics has disappeared and all you're left with is the paperwork, then you don't have the information that you are that you require. So could we?
I would like to say, Mr. Chairman, that in the interest of transparency, it would have been better if we could have seen the diagrams.
Yeah, got that. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. I think it's on this point. I'll just check, if I may. Communication approach. Now, the last paragraph is, I think, a little concerning. I beg pardon, the paragraph and the paragraph before that. A protocol being adopted saying effectively that the head of communication and marketing must capture the essence of the development of the project, that I think, if my memory serves me right, something along the lines of "we must all be singing from the same hymn sheet" was used. So I fully accept I could be wrong on that. However, may I point to the next paragraph? The Joint Committee discussed the media protocol, and unfortunately a full stop is missing there. A member indicated that he would not want the protocol to stifle members in making comments. Now, I was that member, surprise, and very reluctantly the chairman confirmed that, it was said as well, another member from Bournemouth indicated that we should observe embargoes, and of course we have to as part of the Code of Standards, if something is given out as being embargoed, then it's our duty, I believe, to observe that embargo. But it is not our duty to repeat parrot fashion any mantras chanted out by the leadership of the Joint Committee, which is why it was confirmed that any member of the Joint Committee, that we were free to, members may have alternative views, and it does not say, which it did, that we were free to express those views. Interestingly, the day after that, I was contacted by the Echo. I expressed my disappointment that decisions were being taken in, well, we can't say smoke-filled rooms anymore now, can we? But closed rooms. And that went down extremely badly with the powers that be, and effectively I was told to keep my mouth shut privately. Now, that is not encouraging. We've heard quite a bit about transparency, and I expect we will in the future, and that is not transparent. That smacks to me of saying, look, this is the message we want to put over. We're not having any opposition councillors, and we don't want any awkward people from Christchurch or Dorset spoiling the unanimity. It is very depressing. It should be acknowledged that this is a controversial topic. It is not what everybody wants. A sizable proportion of the councillors on the Borough of Poole do not want it. This council does not want it, and we should be free to say that we do not want it, and we should be free to criticise any decisions. And we are free, and I hope that members will still feel free to express the views of this council and of our electors in this, and it is a very ominous start.
Thank you, David. I think my comments are that where you have a joint committee working together to produce joint communications, the challenge is that the constituent components, the three different councils, will have a different view, perhaps. Take the item that we've just been discussing on harmonisation. So it would be wrong for members in Christchurch to be bound not to say anything on harmonisation when it's in fact the council's policy. So I think the communication approach section is very important, and I'm not convinced that we've yet got it right. So I think there may be a little bit more work to be done on that, and we will comment accordingly with your consent. David.
Through you, Chairman, I hope it will be fairly strongly expressed that we believe that where we do have we're supposed to be a democracy, we're supposed to have the freedom of speech, that we have the freedom to represent our views and the views of our constituents.
Which may not accord with the views of the Joint Committee.
Exactly.
Mr. Chairman, that reverts back to my original question about the representation, and I know I've harped on about it, but it's not just about the political balance, it is about numbers as well.
Indeed. We get that. Thank you. Item 12, forward plan for the Joint Committee. Any comments?
I would just like to say that because we, again, only have a small representation, the number of task and finish groups that are being set up is putting an awful lot more pressure on our couple of people than it is on other members of the committee. And I do see an unfairness there as well.
Thank you, Fred. Okay, that concludes. I beg your pardon, David.
To you, Chairman, that point was made. It was my original impression at the meeting in October that it had been agreed that because we only have 2 members on this committee, that we would be able to appoint substitutes or whatever to cover that, so that you would have the we could appoint other people to this. By the time that this emerged into light in the minutes, that had been changed, and although the matter was raised, nothing came of it, so that this is now the official view. It's extremely disappointing, but again, I think it's fair to say that we are recognised as the possible troublemakers on the committee, and there seems to be a view that they'll keep us out as much as they can.
Anything else before we move on to the meeting of the 21st of November? Are members content that I go through in the same manner? Yeah. So we will now be looking at the second iteration, if you like, of those headlines, and looking at item 18, paragraph 18, I beg your pardon. Programme overview, high level plan and initial resource estimate for phase 1. Do we know how many phases there are? So do we know what phase 2 and phase 3 is? Just refer back to the previous paper. Programme overview.
Chairman?
Yeah. Denise.
Sorry, but could I just go back to the beginning before the items, the introduction, as it were, of who was present and the officers?
Please do.
I noticed this on the first set, and I'm interested as to why Mr. Milner is referred to as Strategic Director, Christchurch Borough Council, and Mr. McIntosh is referred to as Chief Executive, Christchurch and East Dorset Councils. Should it not be Christchurch Council, because East Dorset has no bearing at all on his membership of this group?
Thank you for your observation. I would suggest that it is his title, even though in his role he is representing Christchurch Council, but his title would be.
But is Mr. Milner's title not Chief Strategic Director, Christchurch and East Dorset?
I seek guidance on that. Ian, perhaps you could. Okay, so do we know why it is misrepresented?
I assume the person who's actually writing the notes should be consistent in terms of having represented both myself and David McIntosh.
So they're both incorrect then?
Well, it depends on your perspective. If you want our specific titles, then the way they've represented David McIntosh is correct. But if you want us to show what council we were representing, like the way I've been represented is correct. Depends on your perspective. If you're after the job titles, David McIntosh is right. If you're asking who we represent, mine is correct.
So, I understand. Ian, would you like to come and join us at the table? So then you can use your microphone and we don't have to sort of strain so hard. Could you just repeat that? Because I do have a bit of difficulty in understanding.
I think it depends on your perspective. If you're looking for the correct job title of myself and David McIntosh, then the way David McIntosh has been described is correct, because he is the Chief Exec of Christchurch and East Dorset Councils. If your perspective is who are we representing at the meeting, then the way my description is put is correct, because I would only be representing Christchurch Borough Council.
Through you, Chairman, I'll be happy to raise this on Friday as a query on the minutes and suggest that a consistent approach be adopted.
Thank you. Thank you. May we, thank you, Ian. May we continue? So on para 18, programme overview, as far as I can see, there was no reference to this in the previous minutes, the minutes of the first meeting. So it would be, I would have thought, appropriate to have had a little bit more information, which would have said this project would take so many phases, and this is phase one, and because we don't know whether it's phase one of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 or 6. So I think it's lacks a little bit of clarification. The Joint Executive Director introduced the report and highlighted the following 3 core phases, alongside the methodology around cost, resources and risk categories. Is that what they're referring to at the top as a core phase? Maybe we can seek clarity.
I will seek clarity. Through you, Chairman, I will seek clarity on that point and will report back.
Thank you.
It might be appropriate if I circulate all members with the information.
Thank you. I think it comes back to a point that Fred, you made earlier on about having the complete information, because if you look at the decisions made, note the high-level programme plan and the work streams outlined, which we don't have. Ian, yes, please.
Apologies, Chairman. These are the minutes of the meeting, and if you look at online, there is a link to the actual reports, and the reports, particularly the item you're just discussing, does go into a lot more detail in terms of Gantt charts and things like that, and costs. So your question about there should be more detail, the detail is there, and the detail was presented to the Joint Committee and is available for you to look at.
Okay, and
Yes, it is.
Yeah,
it was.
I think the point is that we don't all have electronic access when we're deliberating things here, and if they are the points that you're making are perfectly correct, perhaps we could have those links on the screen so that when members want to have a look at them, we can call them up.
Chairman, with respect, that we use Modern Gov, and all that information is on Modern Gov, and there's a direct link through that for members to actually look at before they come to the meeting.
Yeah.
So all the information and you've referred to other elements of the minutes where you're saying there was a lack of information. There is further information, more detailed information contained within the reports, which is a link contained within the minutes.
I understand that fully, and I think the point we made at the start of the meeting is that this is our first meeting, and these are the things that we will pick up as we go through. So in future, when members come along, they use ModGov, and they can pick up those links if they require them for discussion. Thank you for that, David.
Thank you, Chairman. The the facilitating office or the host office, whatever you call it, or the democratic services at Bournemouth Borough Council do send members a PDF of the entire package, minutes and reports. It should not be beyond the wit of man to have that report recirculated. It'll take one click of or possibly even 2 or 3 clicks of a mouse to recirculate those to members of this committee. Again, for the sake of transparency, it is something that we should be looking at, and it does help people, because not always is it possible to click through on a link. Sometimes links get broken, sometimes the computer has heart failure or whatever, and I think as I said, it is possible to have the PDF, and it certainly might be helpful for members of this committee if they were to get the reports from Bournemouth at the same time as the members of the committee do.
I think if those papers are available as PDFs already, then we should have copies of them. Thank you. Right.
I would like to add that I've actually done it twice tonight, and I don't get the links are broken.
Okay. All right, Fred. Thank you. Denise.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. At the bottom of page 20, it mentions a joint committee considered a separate task and finish group to consider specific issues in relation to the civic functions of the three authorities. So does this mean now, and it says a number of members endorsed the proposal, does this and decision made on page 5, establish a task and finish group, does this mean now, Mr. Chairman, that we now have 4 task and finish groups, of which our 2 members have to serve?
I would suggest that is the case. Certainly talking to the leader of the council, he did indicate to me that there were 4 task and finish groups that they had to serve on.
May I also ask, it's not not directly concerning this, but the whole thing. We were told that we were going to be paying £80,000 for the privilege of joining in this joint committee. Could I ask, do we have information on what the other authorities are paying for the pleasure of being part of this?
I think that's a valid question. Can we? That'll go. Ian.
I mean, if you give me a few moments, I will look that up.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, that people in Christchurch will be only too anxious to know exactly how much we're paying for this in relation to the others.
Thank you. Moving on then to paragraph 20, council tax harmonisation. Yep.
Thank you, Chairman. Through you, I think it's fair to say that this was a point where the brainwave that people in Christchurch should be awarded the privilege of a council tax freeze or even a reduction was first made public. And I think it's fair to note that there was a gasp of incredulity among the public gallery. Well, there were quite a few politicians who were not in favour of this process. And looking at this, it's very odd because We had a full council very shortly before this in which we agreed that we would proceed with the referendum, and then suddenly the idea of a council tax freeze or even a cut for Christchurch sees the light. Now, when we consider the fuss that's been made about some minor infringements of, well, they're not even infringements of electoral law, because as we're repeatedly told, there isn't any. It is surprising that there's been no adverse comment about this, because certainly a cynic, and as we all know, I'm in no way cynical, might question the motives of this, the timing of this particular announcement. But of course, as I said, we can't read people's minds, and I'm sure that there was nothing in this.
Move on, please, David.
I think I've made the point, Chairman.
Okay, Janet.
As just a comment, but that comment also comes from members of the public. They've noticed that too.
Thank you.
I
I was going to say Trevor, I'm just looking at your name.
Definitely not Trevor. I'd just like to say I agree. It further brings into question the validity of the poll.
Through you, Chairman, I think not.
Okay, we're not going to get into that discussion. Thank you. What I would say on this matter is that before I raised it at a council meeting last year, that I had spoken with the Member of Parliament who had sought advice from DCLG, I think it was, about the setting up of a new council tax. And he was of the opinion, or he had been advised, that if you form a new council, it is exactly that. If you spend 2 years working out what the council needs to spend on the various functions that it does, then you should be able to set your council tax on day one, which is not harmonisation at all. It is setting the council tax for the council which is being formed on day one. And that has been the background for the position of this council all the time, and I'm not quite sure if that is reflected here in the minutes. Ian, would you like to?
Yeah, Chairman, just to come back on that point, clearly there's been a lot of liaison with DCLG, and they are content with the approach that's being taken, that a harmonisation period does exist, and they have not directed the joint committees or the council to say that it must be harmonised on day one. You know, I do appreciate that is you know, a policy of this council, but that has not been a direction from DCLG.
Through you, Chairman, far be it from me to take issue with a finance officer. I believe that the crucial point here is not so much the fact that harmonisation periods have been allowed, although in the massive reorganisations of 1972-74 and in the slightly lesser convoluted changes in 1996, I do not think there were many harmonisation periods, and they certainly weren't of the 20-year requirement. The point is that, as I am sure members are aware, on the 7th of November, RMP had a meeting with the senior officer in DCLG and was advised that 5 years was an absolute maximum. It was more likely to be 1 or 2, and that DCLG would bring forward a modification to that effect of the Future Dorset plan. Now, this is very interesting because it's a long step from 20 years on which the whole financial basis that the Future Dorset proposal was sold to the public, and 2 years In fact, a 90% difference, if my maths is correct. Now, again, if this is the case, an awful lot of sums are going to have to be rethought very, very quickly. And in fact, savings targets, as I understand from somebody who knows these figures much better than I do, already the reduction to 7 years is going to very heavily impact, not on the savings, because of course the savings will still, or the alleged savings may still be made, but the revenue will be considerably less. So I think when we are considering looking to the future, our response, given a mandate from the electorate, that will be one of the points which we should be pressing home. The minister said on the information available to him, well, the information available to him when this was submitted in February in great haste, 2017, now can be shown to have holes all over it. And that might be one of the points we want to consider. Thank you, Chairman.
Fred.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was trying to get your attention before. I had on the structural change order. The thing that I'd like to ask a question is that we've had a royal charter since 1150, and it's been replaced in 1970. It's on the wall, 70 something. And I'm just wondering. I was told originally that only the Queen can dissolve our council. Has that been taken into consideration under the structural change order?
I'm sure that question will be asked on Friday.
One more.
If I may, through you, Chairman, I may not be allowed to ask that because they may say that that is nothing to do with desegregation, but I'm quite sure one of our two representatives will ask that.
I'm sure they will.
And the other thing was that changing the structure of all the councils to the one council, or the two unitaries, we were told, or Bryce Waterhouse told us, there's going to be 450 to 600 job losses. I see an awful lot of redundancies in that package. Could we have a figure of what the redundancies might cost us?
I'm sure that question will also be asked.
Chairman, I can answer that one as well.
Okay, you got the other figures as well.
Whilst we're talking about numbers, let me just answer Councillor Mrs. Jones's question. So, all the councils agreed to set aside 2.5 million, and the split is as follows: Bournemouth 635,000, Dorset County Council 686,000, Poole 491,000, Christchurch 80, East Dorset 144, North Dorset 115, Purbeck 75, West Dorset 164, and Weymouth and Portland 106.
Thank you. Could we have those in writing, please?
Yes, I'll.
Thank you.
And I will now look up the.
Okay. Denise.
Could I just ask, in this question of how much Dorset is paying, presumably that is mainly to do with their work in the rural Dorset. What are they actually paying towards this?
Ian, are you able to answer that question? Can you bring it forward in the same manner as the other information?
Chairman, their percentage in terms of the Dorset area is 50%, and in the conurbation area they'll be paying 6.23%.
Again, it would be useful to have those so that we can understand them in writing. Thank you. have we finished on the harmonisation? Any further comments? In which case we move on to 21, which is principles for disaggregation. Any comments, please? David?
Thank you, Chairman. It's actually nice to say something that I do agree with and that I think they might possibly just have got right. And that, of course, is that the first priority was that service users should not be in any way adversely affected by the change. And this is absolutely crucial, because it is very easy to think that we are dealing with figures and concepts and ideals and glossy political thoughts and wonderful ideas about a city by the sea. But on the other hand, somewhere there's a lady in a flat who is worrying about whether she'll have enough gas to get through the winter. And this is what, again, with what has become clearer, annoys me, is that somewhere along the line, and I did make this remark, if they've got their budget figures wrong, then they're going to have to be very careful that it isn't said lady in the flat who gets the short straw. And unfortunately, I think that might be the case. One other point is, of course, that little was said about Tricuro, which is a joint body of the 3 first-tier authorities. And it's very strange that when they're talking about people in Christchurch would suffer as a result if this doesn't go through, that the economies in this area have already been achieved through Tricuro. That seems to have slipped some people's attention. But that is a crucial point. Whatever happens, the first priority is to get the services delivered to the service users. And obviously there'll be a lot more elderly service users being transferred to Greater Bournemouth than there are already, and the Greater Bournemouth tax base is perhaps not as robust as it might otherwise be, because there's less working class tax paying citizens or council tax paying citizens being transferred as opposed to service consumers. So again, all the comments about what Christchurch pays over to Dorset, Christchurch will simply pay probably more to Bournemouth. And that is, but whatever happens, I think there is a genuine commitment to making sure that people continue to get top class services. The next priority has got to be to look after your staff. And again, we've already mentioned the problems of redundancy and possible redundancy. And we're already noticing that very often in a case like this, if you are a very competent, very highly qualified member of staff, and you see a reorganisation coming down the line at the same time as you see a new job going in Hampshire, what are you going to do? You're going to apply for the Hampshire job. And if you get it, you'll go. So we are left, there's a danger that if we don't look after staff, or we don't meet their concerns, then the service will start to hemorrhage. And that is another point that has been agreed that this needs to be looked at.
So just looking at the comments, at the item 21, the decision made, can I just ask comments on the decision made here, that we agree the disaggregation principles detailed in the report? I think, David, you said you're content with that. Agree the creation of a task and finish group. Again, that's David Flaggen, I beg your pardon, the leader of the council and the deputy leader of the council. and agree a further report be brought to the joint committee when budgetary implications have been estimated, and I think that will meet those your concerns. Fred.
My concern is obviously for the older generation, and we do have quite a number in Christchurch. If they do change their care provider, that means that they'll all need to be reassessed by whoever is delivering it, and that is going to put an awful lot of burden and stress on the older population.
Perhaps that can be a question for Friday. Thank you. Denise, did you want to comment?
Yes,
It's not mandatory.
Would echo Councillor Neil's comments about the elderly and care provision, because already you've got some being transferred from one caring agency to another, and the chances are they will then be transferred to yet another agency. And I think, it is important that we emphasise, as we have done in this discussion, how important it is that the ordinary members of the public, particularly those who need help, do get it. And also this question of staffing, because Bournemouth and Poole have decided to join together, which is perfectly within their rights, but they've already started their process, which means that I would think that some of our staff will feel they're being squeezed out, because if we do get put with them, where do we come? Our staff come in the pecking order.
To item 22, appointment of Chief Officer, Head of Paid Service, process and support for the committee. And that decision was that the report be noted. Content. And finally, I think the forward plan for the joint committee be received and updated in light. A standing item be added to the future, and perhaps we need to have sight of that as well.
Yes, I think we do.
Ian.
Chairman, in response to Councillor Neil's question with regard to redundancy costs, they are estimated to be broadly £6 million, 5.8 million.
Thank you. David.
Thank you, Chairman.
Yeah, that's across the whole of Dorset, basically split 50-50, 2.9, 2.9.
And those costs have been fed into the overall financial modelling.
Yes, they have.
Just as a matter of interest, when they did this exercise in Cornwall and in Wiltshire, they obviously would have gone through a similar modelling process. Do we know whether the outcomes were actually in line with the modelling on redundancy?
Personally, I don't know, Chairman.
I think it might be something that we would be interested in.
I remember Colin Pungy telling me that he speaks to them quite frequently, and 5 years on, they still don't know what it's cost them.
QED.
Through you, Chairman. Certainly at the start of the present chain of reorganisations, and this is, I think, being admitted by both Labour and Conservative local government secretaries, Every reorganisation into a unitary authority has cost more and saved less than has been estimated. In fact, in one reorganisation in the northeast, which was designed to save jobs and reduce the top salaries, within 2 years there were more top jobs and quite a bit more in salaries.
Thank you for that. I think that concludes our agenda for this evening. I hope members found it was as useful as I did. David, you wish to come back?
Thank you, Chairman. Really, it's a note going forward. Half of our job is scrutinising what has been done, and I think we've done this quite thoroughly tonight. And I think we will be able to go out into the wide world, and certainly when the minutes of this meeting become circulated and become available, I hope that some of our colleagues will have read and will be more aware of what's going on. However, the other half of the job should surely be to look at what's coming down the line. And this is where your point, Chairman, about receiving the full papers for the meeting is very important. There are quite a few points on and there's no point in looking at them tonight because not many people have the papers. But increasingly, there will be a lot of very important material coming forward on electoral arrangements, on transitional arrangements, on the civic functions, you name it, it's coming. Particularly, I'm afraid, if the Minister is so misguided as to approve the final final approval. In that case, we really do need to look at the second half of our proceedings. Shouldn't just be looking at what we did, because it's too late to alter what we did, but we need to look at what we are going to do. Again, something for transparency, something in time. It's got to be done.
David, thank you for that, and thank you for the work that you put into this. I think the points that you have just made will come forward when we have a look at the forward plan, because the forward plan we would like to have on our agenda. Fred, final point, please.
As you've mentioned, a couple of things I brought up, it would be questions at the committee on Friday. Is there a chance that we could have a list of those separately from the minutes so that we can ask those questions?
I believe there is an opportunity, if you wish to ask a question on Friday, that you can submit that question by midday tomorrow, is it?
Through you, Chairman, 10 o'clock tomorrow morning. They are a little hesitant about the right of members of the public to ask supplementary questions for some strange reasons that I can't quite understand. They don't seem to approve of those in Bournemouth.
So if you speak very kindly to our admin officer, they might have something for you that you can take away. Denise, and then I must go.
Thank you. It's in relation to this, Mr. Chairman, at least I think it is, in that we have references to the Constitution. Is it possible for us to have what this Constitution is? Because they seem to make it up as they go along.
It's a reasonable question. Thank you.
Through you, Chairman, I'm sorry to delay you. I said there's a lot of interesting stuff coming down. It is suggested that we should abide by the Bournemouth Borough Council's constitution.
And I think I know what the response to that would be from the leader of the council and the deputy leader of the council. Are there any other comments? Good. The meeting is closed for the second time. Thank you.